Dispatchers help callers on the worst days of their lives. For over 25 years, we've been there. A silent partner in millions of calls thanks to our redundant and diverse networks that ensure call delivery. Today, cities are bigger, traffic more congested, and the challenge is more complex. But you're never alone, because InDigital is quietly improving, implementing, and driving the next generation of 911, so you're supported in every situation. Make the switch at indigital.net.
Have you ever met a 911 professional and asked, what's the worst call you've ever taken? Well, here's your answer. I heard your last breath the night you flipped your four-wheeler. I tried to call you the day you committed suicide by driving your car into a tree. Blue face, cold to the touch. I helped you with CPR after you found your infant face down, not breathing. It messed me up. I did everything I could, but it wasn't enough. You were with me from the beginning, Grandma. 27 years later, I took the 911 call when you died. How fitting to be there for me in the beginning, and I was there for you in the end. I miss you, Grandma. I am 911. This is but a glimpse into the world of emergency dispatch. But what is it really like to answer a call during someone's nightmare? What is the impact of the first responder answering the call? Available on Amazon or where you purchase your favorite books and ebooks. Imagine listening. Your worst day is our everyday.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
And this is why I push training. And even if it's not something that you do every day,
right,
then still learn what you can.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had a mom and her child inside their residence with her husband on the outside firing shot after shot after shot inside their home. And the other agency, I couldn't transfer the call to them. And they were busy, they were understaffed, and so the call wouldn't go through. So I stayed online with this mom, listening to her terrified until help could get there, until the sheriff's department can get there. So in this job, you literally have to be prepared for everything.
Right. Yeah.
Because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know from one call to the next what may change.
I love how you put that. Train for everything and anything that you can, because you don't know. Anything can happen in 911.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is going to be Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by InDigital, a leader in next-gen core services, and a big shout-out, as always, to subscribers of the podcast. Thank you all very, very much. I wouldn't be able to do everything that I do if it wasn't for all of you, but especially all of you who are here watching, sharing, and supporting, just all of it. So thank you very, very much. And, this has been... For those who are watching and listening, this is the first episode, I believe, after a shit ton of episodes that I had in the can. I still have some more, but this one is a new one that we're recording today and will be going out the next day. And my guest, who's in the green room right now, has just heard this. Sometimes things get sped up fast, and I love it. And there are tons of powerful episodes that are going to be coming up, so make sure to look out for that. And I am back from the Mississippi conference from a few weeks ago. We've got more conferences coming up, and also just did the comeback, the return of the Public Safety Showcase as part of the Trenches community. If you have not had a chance to check those out, you can join the community. The community is free. Once again, it's called the Trenches, and it's a 911 professional community, and it's on the Circle platform. Simply go to links, that's links with 2 I's, trenches.co/IAM911. Scroll down. You'll find a link right there for the trenches. Again, it's free. You can check out all of the stuff there. There's now over 200 hours worth of continuing education. So much cool stuff there. Make sure to check it out. But thank you all for everything and the support. And it is good to be back jumping in with some fresh new episodes. I say fresh new episodes, but like I said, I've got tons of them that have been just coming up that are fresh and new. But I just mean this is the new one, the next one recording here live, because it's September 2nd. And the last ones that I did that are going to be coming up after this one will be from the last part of August from the Baltimore conference for National APCO. So I'm here with my next guest, and I'm very excited to have her here with me. Her name is Morgan, and she's the education manager over at Pafford Emergency Medical Services. Hello.
Hey, how are you?
I am doing well. It is a little warm in the room that I'm in right now. But
I'm in an ice box. I will gladly trade. I have a heater going. It is 98 degrees outside, and I have a heater going.
Oh, man. Like, I've got the AC going, but for whatever reason, this room specifically does not get it. And I've got a fan, like a little tiny fan like this that is blowing air up here. And yeah, I will trade you. So we'll have to figure that out. Maybe we'll have it figured out by the end of the episode.
You just have to come back to Mississippi.
I know. Yes. Oh, man. Okay. So for everyone who's watching and listening, I had an excellent time out in Mississippi. And this is where Morgan and I were talking. We were there at the Mississippi conference. I had a booth out there. I note speakers, and we did an Imagine Listening session, and it was just so much fun. And then the food alone, oh man, I think I probably gained a few pounds just from there because the food was excellent. But thank you, all of you, just for the hospitality. And Mississippi is amazing. It's a good time.
It's home.
The way you say it, you're like, it's home. Well, home is where the heart is, right?
I mean, not my home. It's someone's home. It's not my home. It's just where I live.
Oh, okay. Well, the conference was awesome, and it was cool to be there with you and just meet everyone there. And I'm excited to have you on. And so let's just jump right in. So let's go back in time, and because you've got about 11 and a half years in public safety. But you also started EMS at like 14, correct?
Yes. So whenever I was just turning 14, my community had a first responder class that you could sign up for. And my little boyfriend at the time, his parents were paramedics in our community. And he was doing it. So I was like, sure, I'll do it too. And I fell in love with taking care of other people. I've always been a caretaker. I've always believed in, well, it was just what I was taught. I was taught that you take care of everyone. It was a very small community that I grew up in. Everybody knew everybody. And I absolutely fell in love with it. I fell in love with the medicine, even as minimum as it was at, the first responder level, the EMR level. I fell in love with it, and that's what I wanted to do. And then I changed my mind. The world happened, and I started college with a major that I absolutely hated, and I was miserable. And I found dispatching. I was shadowing a family friend. She worked at a communication center, and I started showing up to work with her and fell in love with it. Listening to the calls, how you had to take charge. I'm a little bossy, so it worked out well. Just having to take control of a scene and talk people through some of the worst days of their life. And I took the time learning the EMD, the emergency medical dispatching and fire dispatching protocols, and devoured them. And so I would leave college and go straight to the communication center, and leave the communication center and go straight back to school. And that's where I found my passion.
Whoa. Okay. Hold on. We've got a lot to unpack here. Hold on a minute. let's
You said
rewind.
you wanted to rewind.
I know. Yes. Yes. Holy moly. Okay. We're going to rewind again. Okay. So way back 14, as you're going through all of that, as you said, your little boyfriend at the time that you had, his parents were paramedics. So I'm guessing, were there any of those times where, I don't know, maybe you guys were hanging out together or something, and you see the parents like they take off, whether it was volunteer or not, or maybe they were getting ready to go in for a shift and you just knew like, oh, they're going to go and do that. I mean, do you remember hearing, whether it be radio traffic or any stories from them or even from the boyfriend at the time, any of that first? Do you remember hearing anything like that?
Not necessarily. I mean, I remember them talking about their calls, but the person who introduced me to dispatching, she was actually an EMT in the community as well. So I was a little girl going to the community, the rescue center, and they would put on little events for the community. My mom got into a really bad wreck. I was about 8 or 9, and my sister was unrestrained in the vehicle, and it created a spider web on the dash, or on the window shield, and that's where we went. My mom took her immediately there to get her checked out. And so even before the little boyfriend, it was, this was what I knew from her. I grew up under her. I followed her everywhere. If she had something, I thought I had to have it too. And it was no different. I guess you could say she was the real reason I got into EMS to begin with, even as a little girl. So I remember hearing her calls more so than the boyfriend's family's calls. And I thought it was the coolest job in the world.
Wow.
I thought it was the coolest thing.
I can imagine them before the boyfriend and this accident happening and everything that kind of planted that seed a little bit, whether you knew it or not at the time, that, in the back of your mind, like this incident happens and it just kind of sticks there. And as you're going to the center, as you're hearing things, then the boyfriend, then the parents that are paramedics, things are like building and building. And I'm sorry, I love connections like this where sometimes you might not know, or maybe you do, and it just, it's not fully there, but you end up going through all of this. That class ends up coming out, and you attend it. And so if you look back at that class that you had taken back when you were 14, what was that even like? What were some of the stuff that they were talking to you about, some of the things that you were learning? Were there any sit-alongs, ride-alongs, or, I mean, even just sitting in an ambulance and them showing you like, this is what the gauze are, this is what this is, stuff like that. What did you experience?
That was exactly it. I was the only girl, and our instructor was a female. She had actually had to retire medically for medical reasons. She had gotten hurt at work, and I was in a room full of these, to my young mind, these big men who are all firefighters, and just listening to them talk about fire. I've never really had the fire bug, but I respected the role that they played, which was very different than the role that I wanted to play. And we had an ambulance in our community that we had to learn how. I remember I was picking up the wrong way. This is why I'll never pick up a patient the incorrect way ever is because she would come behind me and she would pop me on my behind with a ruler, reminded me to lift with my legs and not my back.
Yeah.
And just little things like that that are core memories, but it's still things that I remember today whenever I get to, my husband's a critical care paramedic, and whenever I get to work a truck with him, it's still those foundational skills that I learned whenever I was barely a teenager that have stuck with me more than, EMT school, more than any CEU classes that I've ever had to take. It's those core memories.
I have to ask an inappropriate question really quick. Do you do you ever smack your husband's behind if he doesn't lift with his legs or his knees?
I have done that on scene of a call before. Yes, because you lift with your firefighters, and unfortunately, we did not have as many firefighters as we needed. So yes, I got to stand back while my husband lifted, and I did pop him.
That is amazing. That I thought, I wonder, I'm going to ask. I'm just going to go ahead and ask because I can see it happening, whether, especially as, as a spouse being like, hey, bro, like, do we need you in the hospital too? Like,
I tell him the only way he is going out is if I am, let's not have that on recording.
That's hilarious enough. Just saying it like that. That is funny. Oh man. So you had all of these experiences and everything just early on. And so I have to ask as well, because I always like to ask to compare stories from other folks and everything. So then what was that like being that age, going through all of these things, experiencing all of these things, but also going to school and, having friends and stuff asking, because that's got to be one of the cooler things. Or I don't know, maybe people didn't ask, but I can see being in school and experiencing certain things that your friends have no idea because they're, I don't know, going to the mall, just spending time together, going to, I don't know, wherever to hang out. But you're working on things that eventually will also allow or to help save lives. What is that like at that time?
It wasn't really something that we talked about. I was also the athletic trainer at school as well. So I guess it was just a role that they saw that they were familiar with. I'm not really sure.
So it was just like normal.
Yeah, like it was normal. And I went to a really, really small school where we were K through 12. We had barely 500 students K through 12. And everybody's daddy's, uncle's, brother's, sister's husband was on the fire department, was on some type of fire department, or was a police officer or a sheriff's deputy or something. So it was just normal. Or if their immediate family member wasn't, someone in their family was. So it was just normal, and it wasn't really something that we talked about. I mean, someone got hurt, then yeah, I would absolutely jump in and help. Usually it was me the one getting hurt. I knew how to take care of myself. And it just wasn't really talked about.
They probably knew a lot of stuff before you could get a chance to even say anything then.
Yeah, correct. And a lot of the people I went to school with, because my graduating class was, I think, like 42 people. And the majority of those were exchange students. So now they're all, again, police officers, nurses, something in the medical field, or, first response adjacent.
Oh, man.
So, yeah, the majority of my class is something to do with, this lifestyle.
Your town and everything is just breeding out public safety people. That's
for the most part.
That's pretty cool. That is pretty
You're
cool.
on one or two sides of it. You're either on this side of the law or this side, and it's a very fine line.
Right. Oh man. Yeah. So you end up I'm sorry, in my head now, the way you said it makes me think of like yearbooks when they say most likely to, and you've got one side or the other side. for, for the
One
most part.
one person wrote in my yearbook, "Who's gonna fix my zippers and my bobos now?" Like, just
Oh, that is hilarious. So, we fast forward. You end up going to college, as you said, and you end up majoring in something that you're just like, meh. Do you feel like, was it really just, I don't really, I don't know that I'm really going to go into anything like that. Maybe it wasn't, whichever. Or have you ever thought about, like, maybe because you had all of this experience and then you go into something that's opposite, that just kind of stuck with you a little bit, and you're just like, maybe you just, like, underneath or in the back of your mind, you just kind of always knew you were going to be in this field ultimately.
yeah, I think so. I During my teenage years, I had so many horrible things happening at home. And I always, around that time, I met my biological dad and his side of the family, and I felt like I needed to make my new family happy.
Mhm.
And so I wanted to do something that would be to their standards. And I realized that wasn't me. And I remember the disappointment from someone who is very proud of me now. Very, very, very proud of me now. I
Mhm.
have his ultimate support. He is one of my biggest cheerleaders, but he's an older cousin of mine. And whenever I told my family that I was leaving school for this job, the look of disappointment and the look of just disbelief, or having a family member telling me that you should be a doctor or a lawyer, you shouldn't be someone working on an ambulance or someone answering a telephone for the rest of their life. And I was already seeing what was on this side of the headset.
Mhm.
um, and I knew there was already so much more to it than what people realized. And that made me want it even more.
I
That
love
made
that.
me, that solidified any doubt that I had that I should have been doing something else, or that I made the wrong decision, you know, leaving school for what I was doing. And I I think that I had started building a foundation in this line of work by the time I could walk, and there was really nothing else for me. There were other things that I think that I would be happy doing. I would be okay. I would be happy doing it, but I wouldn't thrive. I wouldn't thrive under the stress and the pressure, and um, finding new ways of introducing this job to other people, and making sure that new people understand, or even people who have been doing this for years and they forget the impact that they are making on someone else. And that's the reason why I was like, I can't do nursing. I can't, do teaching. I can do something along the same lines, but better, in my opinion. And that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, I was just going to say that is exactly what you're doing. If it happened to be something like that, that you were doing previously, that you were going to school for, whether it be nursing, teaching, whatever, technically you're doing that exact same thing in what you're doing in one way or another. You're doing a version of it.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you're doing what every one of those occupations is, and that's helping someone. It's
Mhm.
teaching someone. It's in those moments. It might be super fast, right? But you're there for them in that moment. And I love that you were aware enough and that you wanted it enough that you chose you. You know, no matter what it was, family, anything that was going on or whatever, you chose something, like you said, because you felt that, the case that you mentioned, but you felt it right away. Like, you know what? I'm not going to ultimately be happy. And why please others when I should please myself? Because eventually, hopefully, those folks will see that, like you said, the word that you used, that you're thriving, not just surviving. And I think that is one of the big things with a lot of folks in any occupation or anything that they're doing or any choices, is that sometimes there are other factors there that we feel like, you know what, I'm going to do this because maybe it'll make others happy and I'll eventually be happy too, and I'll just settle into it. But there's that word, settle. And
Mhm.
also, you don't want regret. That's the worst thing in the world to have, because if you had stayed, can you imagine years later having that regret and thinking, I should have done what I was doing before, what I was loving before at 14 on up. I should have just have been doing that. And yeah, you could get into it afterwards, but you missed a lot of that time. And that might have just kind of stuck with you and just like was eating at you or whatever. So I love the fact that you didn't settle, that you did not have the regret, and that you chose you. That is awesome. That is a great story, just that in and of itself. Well done.
This job has made me the best version of myself, because the time that you have with someone on the phone, even if it's the same person that calls 5 times a day, and by time number 3, it's no longer funny, it's frustrating. You're the person that they're going to remember. You're the kindness that you show them, the grace that you show them, the fact that I tell everyone, I tell all my trainees that you just have to be a kind human.
Mhm.
And sometimes we have to, it's so easy to become jaded in this career, and it's so easy to become a shell of a person. And sometimes you just have to remind yourself that you have all they're looking for is a kind human on the other end of the phone, whether it's talking a child through CPR, how to do CPR on their parent or their sibling, or you're talking to a little old lady or a little old man who is has found their significant other passed away, and all they know in their entire life has been this person. And those things change you, and you can choose to let it change you for the worse or for the better. And I refuse to be made worse for helping someone.
Mhm.
Not whenever I can use that experience for the next experience that's going to come, because this job is ever changing, ever growing, and ever evolving. And it's our job in this line of work to change, grow, and evolve with it. And whether that is on a spiritual, emotional, physical, whatever level, then that's what's expected of us.
Yeah, we're trained and bred in a way to think on our feet.
Mm-hmm.
and and adapt and evolve and change all in those quick moments.
Mm-hmm.
And
I call it my
it's
Rolodex of personalities.
I
The
like that.
longer you do this job, the more personalities you develop, because you have, and I tell all of my new hires this, you have point 0.3, 0.5 seconds to gauge what you're receiving on the other end of this line and adapt to it to be what that person needs. And that point 0.3, 0.5 seconds, you have to flip through your Rolodex of personalities and pull the one off that they need, and then put that personality back in that Rolodex for the next call.
I dig that. I love the way you explained it. You are exactly right. Yes, because every person is different.
Mm-hmm.
Every
Every
person
call
is
is different.
different. So you get into dispatch, and did you get a chance to do a sit along during that time? Like,
Yes. So I was already, whenever I was listening to how calls were being processed and how you had to interact with these callers, how you had to interact with the variety of the public that's coming in, that it was more than just a customer service job. Then I got to ride on an ambulance, and I got to see how the center that I was with, once you got hired on, you had to do a full rotation on an ambulance, because if you were going to dispatch them, you were going to know how their side of the radio worked, how they operated on there. You were going to know what it's like to sit on the side of the road for X amount of time, or to drive each post back and forth from one location to the other. And I went in, I was supposed to do 6 hours. I ended up doing 18 on the
oh,
truck.
welcome. Wow. Okay. So yeah, no, I mean that doesn't always happen. Like I did ride-alongs. They were supposed to be like, those 8 hours, and it turned out to be a little bit more. But holy moly, that is definitely a longer one coming in. So how was that experience for you then, doing that ride-along for that whole shift?
Oh my gosh, I loved it. I realized that shift that I there was nothing else for me. I wanted to work both sides of the radio. I wanted to work on a truck, and I wanted to work in communications, and I wanted to do it all. I wanted to be able to do it all. And I wanted to be encouraged in being able to reach for whatever limit I wanted to and then exceed it. If I wanted to, you know, go to medic school, then I can, and I can still be a dispatcher. And we had a lot of people within our center who did that. We had several paramedics that would still work in the field, or they would work in communications part-time. And just hearing more of their story, hearing more of their experience, I couldn't imagine myself doing anything else. That was it. That was the be all end all for me.
Oh, that okay. So that is really good, because there are, sometimes people will go on those ride-alongs, and they'll be like, I mean, it was all right. We just did whatever, and then
Mhm.
there are others who go and like you were like, this is what I'm gonna do. This is what I want. Like, it sounds as though the bug bit you hard.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It went from just a tiny little nibble to it was embedded in me.
I dig that. I love it. So you're in. This is what you want to do. What is the training like? What is it that you're now doing to go through all of this?
So the center that I started at, I call it my home.
Mhm.
I it's they molded me and shaped me and made me into what I am, and I would not be where I am without them. We started on the radio. So the center that I started at, we were an agency within a communications district. And so we had our primary PSAP who would take the phone call, take the initial 911 call, and then transfer it to us. We dispatched for EMS and fire. So I started on training with the fire channel. And once I got proficient in fire channel, I moved on to EMS. And then training was difficult. It was a lot more. It was very different than what I had gotten used to, just shadowing, just being there all the time, learning what I could before I got paid. Like once I started getting paid, and I had a set supervisor and There was a training class I had started like 3 months ahead, and it was, it definitely showed me what I did not want to do, what I did not want in training. The trainer that I had, he was a fantastic supervisor, not the best trainer. And then another supervisor came in and he told me, he was like, the next shift, you're going to start on my shift. So we worked a 28-day rotation at that time, where every 28 days we swapped from days to nights. He said, so instead of going to day shift, you're just going to come to night shift. You're just going to stay on night shift for another month. And I was like, okay. And he said that he saw something start to dim behind my eyes, and he wanted to change that. He wanted to give me a chance. And whenever I started on his shift, it was completely different. You know, in your career, I don't know if it's like this for everyone, but for me, you have someone where you look back at the end of your career and you know that this is the person that I want to say made proud. He was that person for me. His name is Eric Halsey. He is fantastic. And he took me under his wing and he started training me on EMS and showing me that, you know, how to look at the posting plan where it's not complicated. You see a truck, you see a post, you put the truck where the post is supposed to go. We're making it harder than it needs to be. And he really put things in perspective for me. And then I went off to EMD class. I was gone for a week to learn emergency fire and medical dispatching. And I came back and then started call taking training. And everything that I thought I knew and that I had learned shadowing went out the window. Whenever
no.
When it's you that's pressing that button for that call to come through, I'll never forget. I came in that first night and he turned around and he said, okay, you're going to show me what you learned all week. And he was monitoring my calls, and the first call that I had taken right off the bat was from my community, someone I grew up with, and they had killed themselves, and I couldn't get my ProQA to open. I thought it was the system, but looking back, it was definitely a me issue, not a system issue. Mm-hmm. And I remember realizing I'm panicking. I need to take a breath. And I saw my supervisor turn to the side, and I took that breath and I just jumped right into the call. And that first night I was on 911 calls, I had 6 deaths. And that's whenever he knew I was going to be a black cloud.
Oh no. Okay, let me say this for those who are watching and listening. Not everyone starts with this many deaths on their first shift. So hearing this is crazy. This is definitely like a throw you to the lions going into taking 911 calls, but also for those who are watching and listening as well, you know, you got to factor in, you've gone through all this training and everything. And like you said, once you go in, it's like, whoop, all right. You're doing it as you go along. And sometimes it is like that, just like for your experience. And your first one, though, to be someone that you knew, and the fact that it was that type of call, and then having to go to the next one and the next one, and it doesn't stop, especially, you know, how busy it is. And it's not to scare anyone or anything like that. That's just the reality sometimes of this profession. But while this profession can be scary and crazy like that, there are also a lot of rewarding moments as well, and good things that come out of it, especially if you have those around you were supportive. And I love that you had someone that saw, like you said, something dim a little bit and thought, you know what, I'm going to help this person out. You know, maybe that person that helped you, maybe the same thing happened to them. And this was a moment where they could pay it forward and do the same thing with you, because maybe they saw a little bit of themselves in you, and they continue to share and go through this. But damn, 6 deaths on your first night, and you are the shit magnet. You're the black cloud.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. After that first call, he turned completely around and he looked at me. He said, "Why don't you go take a walk? Why don't you go take a breath?" And I took a really deep breath, and I will never forget this as long as I live. I took a really deep breath and I sat up on my chair like this. And I said, "No, I've got it." And I answered the next call. And
Well
at the end of
done.
my shift, they gave me, everyone on my shift, everyone on that shift that I was on, they had been doing this for a long time. On both sides, everyone that worked on my shift, they had worked on the ambulance, and they had worked, you know, in communications for years. So they, of course, ragged the new kid, just, you know, giving a little bit of levity to the situation.
Right.
And at the end of the night, he said, "Are you coming back?" And I said, "I'll be here tomorrow." And he said, "Okay." And at the end of the week, he told me that I was made for this, that I was absolutely made for this job and this career. And it just validated what I was already feeling, that I had a purpose. There was something that I was made for. And just his support meant everything.
I wonder, like, have you ever thought about if you would have taken a break?
Mhm.
Do you think that your brain might have started playing tricks on you, in the sense of being like, do you really think you can do this? You know, like, because sometimes people get in their heads, and I've spoken to a lot of folks who have said, you know, I left after, you know, my first big call, whether it was the very first one they took, or, you know, within training, or once they were off training, something, you know, crazy happened, and they went to their car, or they went for a walk out in front of, you know, dispatch or whatever. They were just sitting in the hallway, whatever the case. And those folks have said, you know, if I had not gone back in, I might not have continued to be in dispatch or this profession or whatever. So I'm glad that I went back in, because that also told me that I too was like made for this. You ever wonder if you would have walked out, if not that you would have actually left, but maybe some of those thoughts might have set in or something?
No, not really. I have always been good about just letting things go. Now, of course, I have not been doing this as long as some people have,
Mhm.
but just in my several years of doing this job, I have had a few calls that they stick with you. They're
Mhm.
hard to shake off. Um, the first time you listen to someone scream whenever they burn to death, the first time you hear a mother who has found her baby not breathing, those are sounds that you never forget. There's something primal in those screams. But I think that if I had had a night other than what I had my first night of call taking, I think that first night made me. It showed me what I was made of. It showed me that I could handle it, and that it was no longer a game. It was no longer something fun that I just got to set in on and someone else was in charge. It showed me that I'm a lot stronger and I'm made of tougher skin than what I had thought.
Yes, I fully agree with you, because you get those moments, right, where, and those who are not in public safety might not understand this, but you go through all of those hard calls or even an incident as a team. And at the end, you have that moment of satisfaction, whatever the outcome is. And that's why I said this is going to sound weird to others, but that moment of satisfaction or that thought process of, I just did that shit. Like I just did that. Or we just did that, depending on the situation, right? But you have that, you leave, because I feel the same way as you, and I'm getting goosebumps right now just talking about it. I remember some of those nights leaving dispatch after the craziest calls it's when you're taking calls and you think, oh, that was the craziest. Nope. The universe is like, here, hold my beer. Here's the next
Watch
one.
this.
Yes, exactly. But then you leave that night, and sometimes you leave with that sense of, man, I just did all of that. Like, who else can say that, but those like us who have been there, who have taken these calls. And you're right. The fact that you had all those people there too, and the person telling you, why don't you go ahead and just go and take some time, and you say, no, I've got this. The fact that you sat up and you're almost like you're cracking your neck. You're like, no, I got this. Yeah,
Like,
I can do this. Yeah, I can do this. And it sounds like you just straight up had this support system there that people were like, either way, whether you need to leave or you're going to stay, we have got you as well.
And those are the only one of them still at that communication center. But any of the three, I can pick up the phone right now and call them, and they will help me with whatever I need. They have, that's just the type of people that they are. One of them is no longer in this profession at all, but I could still pick up the phone and call her, and she will help me through whatever the call is that I had just taken, or if it's, a training issue, or if I'm just, questioning myself and my abilities, I can call any of those three people. And I don't think that if I had had a smooth, easy, night full of BS calls that first night, that it would not have solidified that bond that I have with them. It's really one of those, forged in fire type of situations.
Yes.
You don't really know what your team is made of until you have those moments.
I fully agree as well. Yeah. I still have folks that I used to work with that I still chat with every so often. And sometimes I will randomly just reach out to them and just say, thank you for being there and for us working together, because we went through some shit that no one will ever understand, because it was just us in there going through it all together, and we did it. We made it out, and we were there for each other.
It's one of those situations where whenever people make the offhanded comment, well, you had to be there, that is the epitome of this job. You had to be there to be able to understand it, or to hear someone tell, one of their experiences, and you may not really understand what they're talking about. I get that look a lot from family and friends. They don't really understand because they weren't there. They didn't see the firsthand account of, one night my longest 911 call was just at 6 hours. I was on one single 911 call for 6 hours. And that's one of those situations where even people who do this job, they look at you just like you just did. Like,
I know.
Wait a minute, what? Can you run that by me again? Like, holy, how does that happen? And it's another one of those situations where the supervisor, it happened to have been the one. It was a different agency that I was working at, and I happened to be the one to answer that 911 call. And it was a boat that had hit a rock wall and was sinking. There were several injured on board. They were out in the middle of nowhere. It wasn't even our jurisdiction. And I already had, that was a fire training type call. And because I had had that experience, and I had had that groundwork and that foundation at the center that I started at, the center that started molding me, I was able to help them until we could get someone to them. And I even had to give them, like, drop a pin on my phone so that we could get a location because they had no idea where they were at. And so I got their phone number and gave them my phone number and had them drop their location to my iPhone so that I could put in the coordinates into the CAD system. And the supervisor, she was absolutely fantastic. It was, okay, what can I do to help you? What assistance can I offer you? She was making phone calls right there for me. She was taking the leadership that I had to offer in that moment and was running with it. And she stayed right there with me well after our end of shift time, helping me, making sure that I had what I needed to make sure that these men got home.
I chuckle because I'm like, holy hell, 6 hours is a long time. I love that you had a partner there though that stuck with you and that you guys were doing all of this together, right? That's amazing. I love that type of teamwork.
Mm-hmm.
The other reason that it like took me back a little bit is because you mentioned fire and EMS. You didn't say anything about police, so I was thinking you were going to be mentioning, maybe you took a barricaded gunman or something, but
No,
again,
I've
because
had that call as well, as because they transferred the call to and this is why I push training. And even if it's not something that you do every day,
right.
then still learn what you can.
Mhm.
Because I had a mom and her child inside their residence with her husband on the outside firing shot after shot after shot inside their home. And the other agency, I couldn't transfer the call to them, and they were busy. They were understaffed, and so the call wouldn't go through. So I stayed online with this mom, listening to her terrified until help could get there, until the sheriff's department can get there. So in this job, you literally have to be prepared for everything.
Right. Yeah.
Because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know from one call to the next what may
Yeah.
change.
And I love how you put that. Train for everything and anything that you can, because you don't know. Anything can happen in 911, even if you are in a center in an agency that does fire and EMS only. You could potentially get a police call,
Mm-hmm.
and like you're saying here in the situation, and you can't transfer it.
Mm-hmm.
They might be getting overflow, and you try to transfer it, and it like rings back to you. You're like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay, we're gonna have to do this,
Okay, let's buckle
and you
in.
do, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. Let's put
We're
the
going to
pedal
learn
to
a
the
new skill
metal.
today.
Yes. And yeah, that's what this profession is like.
Mm-hmm.
Anything can happen. You can go from helping someone with a fireworks complaint to immediately going into CPR or, anything else like that. But especially fire and EMS, when you're doing those, and it's an agency that is, like I said, just strictly for those things. You never know, it could happen, and that has happened with you. And yeah, better to be prepared for anything and everything than try to be siloed into one spot. And then what do you do?
Mm-hmm.
What do you do?
And I've worked for agencies before that tried to diminish that or use it as a, well, it's not our problem. And that's what's wrong with this profession. This job is no longer a data entry job. This job is no longer, Barb, who smokes a carton a day, drinks a pot of coffee, and will answer maybe 3 calls a day and BS is on the radio with whatever fire department, whatever rescue, whatever. Um, we're no longer that. We have standards. We have training for a reason, and the burnout rate is so high for this job because we are trying to instill the mentality that is long past. We can't teach people in one day, okay, this is the phone button, this is how you touch the radio, this is your pro QA, and have fun. You this job is more. This job is more than that. And it's my job to make sure that the people that are coming behind me, this next generation of dispatchers and call takers, are prepared for that. And the more that you prepare them, does that mean there's going to be 100%, success rate? There's never going to be a turnover? No, because this job is simply not meant for everyone. And that's okay. That's okay.
Right.
I don't want anyone to ever feel like they're a failure because they wake up one day and they realize this job is taking everything from me. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's why I try to explain to people, or, a training program. I have a phenomenal director. He is someone who wears so many hats, not only within our company, but also within his community. And he has so much experience. He's younger, but he has so much experience to offer. But whenever I came to him about a training program that I was wanting to start up, because before I took my position, I was ready to leave EMS. I did not think that there was anything else left for me in it. I was having to sit in my car for an hour, 2 hours after work just to decompress, and not because of the job, but because of the people. And that's not okay. So whenever I was having a lot of health problems, and I was told I have to have, 4 surgeries within 6 months of each other, and I was having all these issues at work, I talked to my husband. I said, maybe it's time for me to find something else. And he asked me, he said, is there anything else that will make you happy? That will make you feel the sense of accomplishment that you feel whenever you leave at the end of the day after taking hard calls? And there wasn't. This is it.
I know it's a hard pill to swallow sometimes when, when someone asks like that, or you're thinking like there's always these moments that we go through where we might here and there question, just as you did, but for medical issues or whatever, for anyone else, whatever the case may be, to start questioning, should I stay? Am I still doing what I'm supposed to be doing? And that's why I mentioned when we were at the conference too, to people, the journaling piece, because then you can go back to those and you can see those wins, or whatever you put in there, and you end up, potentially coming back to that decision, like, this is what I want to do. So then you just try to figure out how to get back to that spot, or whatever level that you were at before, and, whether it be resting for, trying to take some time off to rest or whatever, or going to, I don't know, a retreat or something that has to do with leadership or mental health and wellness, or a conference, to get refreshed and everything, and then come back, because this is exactly what you love to do.
It's important we need to start building an environment that's away from the toxicity. This job is already difficult. This job is already a lot. And I try to tell all of my new hires, or, my coworkers in general, that we don't need to make this job harder than what it already is. And if that means, sending a handful of people to various conferences to be with other people who do similar things, and you're refreshing each other, you're not sitting in a bowl of toxic soup water that is your center, because you have that one disgruntled person on your shift who just makes everyone else absolutely miserable. And that was my problem. Before I took this position at the company I'm with now, I was falling into that toxicity. I found myself becoming something that I wasn't. I was miserable. I was getting to where I dreaded going to work. I have never called out just to call out. If I've ever called out I've never even taken a vacation. Like, I believe that you love what you do what you love, and you let it kill you slowly. And that's literally what I was doing. I would end up in the hospital. My vacation would be in the hospital because I would work myself so much that my body would just shut down. And I was just falling into just this pit of toxicity. And whenever I started working at the company that I'm working at now, it was me allowing myself to become that. And I don't want anyone else to ever feel that way. I don't want anyone else to feel like that one toxic person is, well, that's Morgan. Morgan's on shift today, so it's going to be a drag. Today's going to be a horrible day. I don't want anyone to ever feel that way. So if you can take a few people and go to a conference and let them learn new skills and let them grow and let them develop in a way that they didn't know that they could, that there are other resources out here for people to fully understand what this job is. Send a couple of new people to a conference and let them, hear experiences from people who have been doing this 15, 20, 25 years, 30 years, however long, or someone brand new who's in the same situation as they are. Or having in-house conferences where you bring people from the outside in and let them talk. Just find a new way of doing things. And that's something that my director and I are trying to start in our centers, all three of our centers. Our company has 3 communication centers, and just revitalize this job and make the next generation excited for it.
I love that you're using experience, because just like speakers, the speakers that I love the most are the ones that give a piece of themselves to the audience. They share a piece of themselves. I love that what you're building, it's all from the experience that you guys had to prepare those coming in, that literal next generation of 911, and making it better for them. And whether it be being recognized, or the training is streamlined, or just anything like that. The fact that you have folks, including yourself, that are sharing that is how we relate to each other, is through experience, through story. And it makes it more real. To me, it's more real, it's more impactful, it's more powerful, and it really gets to the heart of all of it. That's the type of place I would want to be at if I was going back into dispatch now. Exactly what you guys are building, that is what I would want to go to. And I'm sure there are a lot of folks that would love to be a part of something as well. So I love that you guys are doing this, and that you're doing it from experience and from the heart, and that you want people to stay. Because believe it or not, there are some people out there that just don't give a shit. And they're like, you know what? If you stay, you stay. If you don't, there's the door. It's like, why? Like, your people that are currently working there are taking OT like you wouldn't believe. Why are you not caring? And it could be anything, right? Who knows? Like, I'm not trying to judge here, but it's always that question of why. Like, why? Let's make things better. So I love that you guys are doing that.
These people are our family. You spend more time with these people that you're working with on the floor, or on an ambulance, or at the firehouse, or wherever. You spend more time with these people than you do your family.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not always perfect. This job is not perfect, and it's not for perfect people. It's for people who wake up every day and try to bring a little good to the world, even if they don't really feel, even if the world has gotten to them and they don't really feel like there is any good. They still wake up every day and they come in, and it's more than a paycheck. It's, I want to make a difference. And you have situations to where dealing with people that you work with as many hours, 12, 16, 18 hours a day, I call it tea kettling. That, and it took me a very long time to understand this, that whenever someone has been taking rough call after rough call after rough call, or it has been a very crazy, very hectic, out of control day on whatever radio channel you're on, that whenever you ask them a question and you get the attitude, you get the brunt of all that anger and aggression, and then a few minutes later everything's fine and you're sitting there still reeling while you got your head bit off, but they're completely fine now. And it took me so long to understand that it's nothing personal. It's not because, this person has an issue with Morgan. It's that they are listening to, 100 people, 100 voices in their head, and none of them are their own. Or they are having to go through exhaustion after, going through their Rolodex of personalities, and they're having to change personalities so many times in a matter of an hour just to keep up with the call volume. And you have to release that pressure. You have to release that steam somehow. And it doesn't always have to mean something negative. Sometimes it's a positive, that they trust you enough to be the person, be that sounding board, be that backboard, be the person that they can release that tension with, that release that steam, and just tea kettle for just a minute, get all that anger and all that frustration out, and then go on. And they don't need you to react. They don't need you to, go to the supervisor or go to the manager and say, well, so-and-so's being mean to me today. It's nothing like that. They just need that few seconds with someone who understands, what they're having to deal with that day. It's a sense of camaraderie. And I try to explain that to people coming in, that especially brand new people who have never done this job before, or even people who I just had a training class, and that was one of the things that I explained to them, and a few of them had experience. It's, don't take it personal, that you're going to find a way to, yours may be going outside and smoking a cigarette. The person next to you, it may be that they just need to get all this emotion out, and you just happen to be the one sitting there. That doesn't mean that you need to file a complaint. You don't need to go to HR. Just give them a minute. And if it goes back to normal, it's fine.
Yeah, I think it's all about giving each other grace. Because we don't know what is going on, we don't know what's going on with everyone. We don't have, it would be awesome if there was the labels, right? Or a little neon light that says, don't bother me, something has happened today, or whatever, but that's not the reality. The reality is that sometimes people have an outburst. Sometimes people, you're, like you said, you're in the wrong place in the wrong moment, and that person just unloads. That's why communication is important, because instead of getting mad back, you can just simply just say, like, okay, you had a moment, can we talk through this, or what is it that was going on? And if they don't want to say anything else at that moment, then you just, like you said, just give them a moment. Show some grace, because again, that's why communication is important. That's why conversations like this are important, so that others can listen, learn, and understand. And I think just at any level of this profession, and not just this profession, but a lot of other professions, that we might be masters at communication, but when it comes to communicating with each other, it doesn't always work. But we learn from each other, and I love how you explain it and how you put it there. Now we're coming up to the wrap up of this episode, because I know you said you were on a break, so I don't want to take up more time, because you're coming up on it as well. So I want to make sure, though, to get this last question. But first off, it has been amazing to have you on. I could talk to you for hours. Like, we could go on and on talking about a bunch of different things. This has been awesome. Thank you, Morgan, for coming on.
I can talk about this job for literal days.
You and me both. And we might have to do a part 2, or we might have to do like a dispatchers roundtable to talk about the topic that we were just talking about, which
Mhm.
basically the overview of it, or the word, is culture. And there
Mhm.
is a dispatchers roundtable that I have coming up here soon. So I might have to have you on as a panelist so that we can talk some more about this, because this is important, and this is what
Mhm.
a lot of people need to hear and learn even more. Kind of a deep dive. But the last question that I have for you as we go into the wrap up of this, you've got all this time in public safety. And what I'm about to ask you is not to change anything. It's simply to maybe just give yourself some advice, because sometimes the things that we go through lead us to the person that we are today.
Mhm.
And if you were to change anything, even just a little bit, it could change everything of where you're at today. So, in the time that you've had, this 11 and a half years or so that you've been in public safety, if you could go back in time to talk to yourself in the beginning of this career, in this profession, what would you tell yourself, if anything?
To be kind to myself. I was not always kind to myself. I will show kindness to someone else real quick. Um, I will, I can let things go. I don't hang on to things, but I have a hard time remembering to show that same courtesy to myself. I will process a heavy situation and know that I did everything within my training to the best of my abilities. But whenever it comes to like the toxicity that I was talking about earlier, and allowing myself to fall into that, and allowing myself to see how it was affecting other people, that's whenever I started standing up for everyone else. But I was forgetting to stand up for myself as well. And just be to to show your to show myself grace and mercy and kindness, and allow my strength to show. um, and the number one thing that I would tell young Morgan is to stop making yourself seem dumber, or your light to be a little bit dimmer so someone else can be brighter. That this job is big enough for all of us, and it relies on all of us. We all have a part to play. And the owner of my company is a fantastic man. And I learned, whenever I met him, I watched him. When you're around this job for a long time, you learn um, to watch people, you'll see their true colors. And he was someone who made sure everyone else's light was brighter than his own. And that's the way I want to be. And I wish that my younger self could see that too, that I don't need to be smaller so someone else can be bigger.
I love it. Perfect. That is some excellent advice for younger Morgan. That is awesome.
Mhm.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being on today, for what you do. Your whole perspective and everything is just refreshing, and I can't say enough. So I am glad that we got a chance to talk at the Mississippi conference, and the fact that we are here today. This has just been awesome. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story.
I've enjoyed it. I was a little nervous. My director was assured me that, and my other manager, they were like, "Oh, you can absolutely talk about communications."
We definitely did. We went over an hour, man. Like that is awesome. It has been excellent, and I'm glad that you had that conversation with them and that we were able to do this. So they were definitely right. So thank you again very much for everything that you do.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it.
Awesome. I will be back here with you in just one moment. And for those who are watching and listening, if you have any comments, questions, or you ever want to be a guest on the show, you can email us. And the easiest way to do all of this is to simply go to links.co/IM911. And that is links with 2 I's.co/IM911. And you'll find everything there. You'll find my email, all of my social media, where to follow, and you'll also find the latest episode of the OG podcast, Within the Trenches podcast, that you're listening to here right now. Also, a link to the new Imagine Listening podcast to keep up to date with all of those episodes that are there. Also, the link to the free community, the 911 Trenches community. And again, just so much education, free continuing education that's there, a lot of connections, networking, everything. Once again, that is the Trenches community, a professional 911 community on the Circle platform. And again, you can find it there at that main link that I mentioned earlier. And you can also find some swag. If you're looking for any podcast or dispatch swag, it is all there. Once again, it is links with 2 I's.co/IM911. And this episode has been sponsored by InDigital, a leader next gen core services. Big shout out to subscribers as always. And you can hear this. Actually, you can watch this. Let's go to that one first. You can watch this on Facebook, YouTube, as well as LinkedIn Live and X. And then I've got clips all over Facebook Reels, Instagram Reels, and TikTok. And then you can listen 24/7, and this is Within the Trenches as well as Imagine Listening. You can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone, and we will see you all in the next one. Imagine listening to someone's worst day every single day. Imagine listening as someone experiences life through their worst nightmare to the miracle of birth or a life saved. I'm Ricardo Martinez, a former 911 dispatcher, and for years I've been recording the voices of a hidden world, ours. I've provided a space for 911 dispatchers to share their powerful stories. It started as a peer support session and continues. Dispatchers sitting together, sharing out loud, or writing down what they couldn't say. Some stories will grip you. Stories of heartbreak, resilience, and calls that haunt us long after the line goes quiet. But Imagine Listening is more than heavy emotion. It's about healing. It's about laughing through the chaos, lifting each other up, and reminding the world that dispatchers are human too. The lighthearted will balance the heavy. Experience the power of storytelling, a podcast for the thin gold line and those who want to understand it. This is Imagine Listening. Your worst day is our everyday. Subscribe now wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts.